Welcome to Be the Boss of Your Money. We talk a lot about saving money on taxes in retirement, about lowering your tax bill, and hopefully lowering your tax bracket as well. There are a few key benefits to doing this in retirement. First of all, the old adage, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. That is hugely important when you no longer have your active income to rely on and you're now moving into the phase of life when you're working just from your where you're living off of your passive income, your investments, social security, maybe you have a pension. So mission critical news to know. What we're going to do is go over two ways that you could possibly lower your tax bracket and taxes in retirement, what they could mean for you, and if you have an opportunity to do so, I'll throw in a third way as well. So let's roll the intro and we're going to have a good quick show here. This is the important stuff that we always need to reinforce and learn about. Here we go. All right, we're back. Welcome to the show. This is Be the Boss of Your Money. It's a show all about helping you take control of your retirement before and after you retire. If you have any questions, that's what the comments are for. If you have a question about the content that we're talking about today, hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Your questions are important, and it's the best part of doing this is, when I hear from you, that is truly the best part about this. And your questions always will help other people as well, because odds are you're not the only person with the question that you have. And if you don't mind, give us a thumbs up or a heart or some kind of reaction. It'll help your other friends, your connections see the show and the good work we're doing here. It's all educational, and I hope you are enjoying it. And if you're watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing to my channel. All right. So when one retires, it doesn't automatically mean that your tax burden goes away. Hopefully, the plan is that for most of us, when we retire, we are in a lower tax bracket, which means we have a lower tax burden. But it doesn't happen as often as you would think. And in fact, many people are in the same tax bracket in retirement that they were before retirement. And many people don't realize that as much money as they've saved, especially the super savers out there who've just put away so much money into their retirement plans, that money is taxable when you take it out. So it looks good when it's in your account, doesn't look quite as good when you have to pay all those taxes. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, well, then forget saving for retirement and just forget the whole thing. Certainly better to have the money to pay the taxes, than not. But what we want to do is figure out a few ways to lower your tax bracket. There are a few things that you should know. Okay. The threshold to make money in the threshold to, how do I say this? The threshold is pretty low to have to pay taxes on your Social Security income. So if you could keep your tax bracket lower, maybe enough to lower your threshold for having to pay taxes on Social Security, you will avoid what's called the tax torpedo. So when you have a higher tax bill, when your tax bracket is up, not only could you have to now all of a sudden pay taxes on Social Security, but it would cost you more, or it could cost you more for Medicare payments. Okay, for the cost of your Medicare. So it's a double whammy when your tax bracket goes up to a certain extent in retirement, because now you're paying more taxes, not just on your income, but on benefits as well. So that's why it's so important to have this discussion heading into retirement. So remember I said there are two things you could do, and I said there's a third one. I'm going to start with the third one. We've talked about that so many times here that I didn't really think I would talk about it again today, but it's an important reminder. And if you're new here, you may not have heard this from me. So let's get into it. You could do a Roth conversion. You have money in an IRA, 403B account, you have money in a simple SEP IRA. At some point, that money is going to be moved over into an IRA when you leave your job, or if you've left several jobs during your career, it's possible that you've rolled over several 401ks into an IRA. If you convert that money from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, when you take that money out in retirement, it's tax when you take it out of a Roth IRA, the money is tax free. When it's tax free, it doesn't raise your taxes, obviously, and it doesn't raise your tax bracket. As opposed to taking money out of a traditional IRA, not only is it taxable, but because it's income, it could put you into a whole higher tax bracket, which could change the taxes you pay on your Social Security and the cost of your Medicare, which means you're paying more money for those for Medicare as well. You're getting less out of Social Security if you're paying taxes on it. Now, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. I don't give tax advice. You're always advised to speak with your true, legit tax advisor when it comes to asking about taxes and how they affect you. But as far as taxes go and talking about taking money out of an IRA or capital gains or short-term capital gains or long-term capital gains, that certainly is part of the discussion that I have with clients, because it's incidental to the everyday ordinary business that we go through. So having said that, something else you could do when you take money out of an IRA, a required minimum distribution. Right now, depending on how old you are, it could be up to 73. You don't have to take an IRA distribution until that age. But if you are 70 and a half or older, you could take what's called a qualified charitable distribution, meaning the money you take out of your IRA, instead of receiving the check or an ACH or a wire, you could send that money directly to a charity. So don't take that money in your bank account and then give that money to a charity, because once you take possession of the money, it's taxable. But if you give that money directly to the charity from your clearing firm, directly to the charity, it's not that you get a deduction for that money, but you don't have to pay the income tax on that money. Because remember, distributions from a retirement plan in retirement, a traditional IRA is what we're talking about right now, not only is it taxable, but it's considered income, which could raise your tax bracket. So for those of you who are not quite up to your filling up your highest tax bracket that you're currently in, you don't want to exceed a higher tax bracket than the one you're in, and maybe saving money on, maybe the taxes on the IRA, the required minimum distribution could affect that. You don't, and providing you are charitably inclined, you could just give that money to the charity. Now, you can't give more in a qualified charitable distribution than what your required minimum distribution is. So you can't front run it. Like, say, I'm going to give 3 years worth of money to a charity out of my IRA and deduct it now. You cannot do that. Any money that exceeds the required, any money that exceeds your required minimum distribution, that just counts as a regular IRA distribution, and it is taxable. So that is another thing you could do. The other thing you could do is this: if you have money in a regular brokerage account, it could be in your individual brokerage account, joint with a spouse. If you take money out of that account and if you sell securities to take money out of the account, and the gains, if there are gains and they're short-term capital gains, not only do you pay taxes on that money as far as your income tax goes, but that would also raise your income taxes, and it could raise your tax bracket, which is another thing that if you raise your tax bracket, it could cause you to hit that tax torpedo when you have to pay more money for Medicare, and you'd have to pay taxes on Social Security. So when we talk about being tax efficient, we talk about moving money from IRAs to Roth IRAs. We talk about short-term capital gains versus long-term capital gains. And we talk about, of course, qualified charitable distributions. All of these have costs to doing them. They require a good deal of thought to make sure they're appropriate for your situation. So definitely talk to me or your financial advisor. before you make these moves. Certainly speak with your CPA or whoever you use as your professional tax advisor. And I think you'll have a lot more clarity on ways you could lower your tax bracket and your overall tax burden, possibly the cost of your Medicare, and possibly lower or eliminate tax on your Social Security benefits. These are really important to think about because when you do get into retirement, it's more important than ever to realize that a dollar saved, again, is a dollar earned. And you really want to stretch those dollars in retirement to make sure your money lasts as long as possible and to make sure that you're potentially getting the most out of life. That's so important. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to go and I will be back tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day.